some stragglers, we can get them up to speed, but thanks for coming out. So, show of hands, who's been to one of these speaker series events before? Yes, yes. Well, welcome back. If this is your first time, welcome. By way of introduction, I'm Sean Murphy, and I direct the Center for Story here at Shenandoah University. It's a virtual space. It's a work in progress. What I'm trying to do is look at story, and by story, as we'll talk about today, can mean anything and everything. There's story in everything we do, so while we typically associate story with creative arts and writing, which we should, it also involves everything from politics to business to marketing to PR. So the Center for Story is just an initiative to celebrate and interrogate what story is, and through these events, I like to bring in experts and interesting people so we can really kick around how they use story in their day-to-day life, and that's what we're going to do today. You picked a great one to come to. I am joined by two people with close associations with a very local nonprofit arts organization, which is quickly becoming a nationally recognized institution, the Peter Bullough Foundation, and I will let them talk about it. But I am joined today by Katie Mooney Buzby, who directs the Peter Bullough Foundation in downtown Winchester, a couple miles down the road, and also Robin Ha, who's an award-winning author and illustrator, and she also has considerable experience in the nonprofit sector. I usually introduce via a bio, but I think it's very appropriate for my two guests to introduce themselves so they can talk about what they do, and then the only other thing I'll say before we jump in is I always encourage questions, and you don't have to wait till the end. If you have a comment or a question, just shoot your hand up and we'll get you involved, and questions are good, so let them rip. Ladies, thank you for being here, and also a round of applause for our guests. Thanks for coming.
There you go.
All right, so I'm Katie Mooney Buzby. As Sean said, I am the executive director for the Peter Bullough Foundation in downtown Winchester, over on Cork Street, and I've been doing that for since 2020. It's a great time to get involved in a nonprofit and leave the commercial sector. Prior to that, my background was in organizational development, and my actual college degree is in, oh shoot, I have to remember it now. My master's was in school design, but my undergraduate degree was design and environmental analysis, which sounds kind of vague. It was great. And now I'm going to turn you over to Robin.
Hi, my name is Robin Ha. I'm a cartoonist and illustrator. I'm also an author and illustrator of 3 graphic novels. The first one was Cook Korean, a comic book with recipes. It's exactly what it is. It's a comic book with recipes, which I co-wrote with my mom. And my second was a memoir called Almost American Girl. It came out in 2020, right before the pandemic. And my latest one is The Fox Maidens, which is my first fiction based on Korean mythology. It came out last year in February. Right now I'm working on a 4th book, which is another cookbook about instant ramen. So watch out for it in maybe 2 years from now. I guess I have been in a local Winchester resident for 3.5 years. And since I moved here, I was very lucky to be connected with Katie and wonderful Peter Bullough Foundation. It was really a coincidence because I lived in New York for a while, and I have a lot of writer and cartoonist friends in New York. And one of them was the first resident in Peter Bullough Foundation. So she just emailed me saying like, hey, I'm gonna be in your hometown. Do you wanna do an event with me? So that's how I got connected with her. But since then, it's been just wonderful getting involved in back end and front end, and being a resident and also being a board member editor for PBF.
Amazing. So we're talking about the PBF. Tell us what the PBF is, what its mission is, how you got involved, why you got involved, and then we can really get into the nuts and bolts and how all of this comes together with story.
All right. So the Peter Bullough Foundation, as you can imagine, has something to do with Dr. Peter Bullough. orthopedic pathologist. He was born in England and spent most of his career working for the Hospital for Special Surgery in New York City. So I can see you're thinking orthopedic pathologist, what does that have to do with arts and artists and writing? Well, throughout his life, Dr. Bullough was really passionate about supporting young artists, living young artists, and helping them follow their dreams. And so when he kind of came to the end of his life, he realized that really what he wanted to do was dedicate all the resources that he had toward supporting emerging artists. So when he passed away in 2019, he left his estate to a board that he had created and left it to his eponymous Peter Bullough Foundation to support emerging artists and create artist residencies here in downtown Winchester. So I met Dr. Bullough just before he passed away in October of 2019, and when I asked him what he wanted us to do, what he wanted the foundation to do, he said to save civilization through the power of the arts. And so we have carried that through. That is our mission. We are hoping to save civilization through the power of the arts. And the way that we do that is by hosting artist residencies, by hosting workshops, lectures, and events, and by preserving his rare book and art collection here in Winchester. So.
Amazing, amazing. So I think some key threads you may be picking up on are, we're definitely going to talk about, and when I was putting the materials together for this event, there were 3 words, 3 C words that kept coming up over and over for good reason: creativity, community, and collaboration. And we can talk a little bit about each of those and what role they play at Peter Bullough, but also in the life of an artist. But I was going to say, from Katie's overview, maybe you're getting a sense like anything involving the arts or anything involving a nonprofit certainly involves a mission, it involves passion, but it also involves money. None of these endeavors can exist unless there are ways to raise money, get money donated, get people interested in the mission. And for me, when we're talking about story as it relates to community and initiatives that are meant to support the arts, it just can't happen with a good idea. There have to be people, especially very talented people, who are both willing and able to see that mission through. But it's a non-stop hustle to raise awareness, to raise enthusiasm, and to get either donations or funding. So feel free to tear into any part of that, but I want to circle around. Well, we'll definitely get to community, and we'll get to collaboration, but as it relates to like the nitty-gritty of running the foundation, like what are some of the challenges? And then Robin, I think you can speak directly to what are some of the benefits that someone coming to a place like this, not only for the individual, which I mean would be self-evident, but the community that they find when they get there, that kind of support system.
Yeah. So challenges that we face is in running a nonprofit, especially in Winchester. So if you didn't know this, Winchester has about 300 different nonprofits that are headquartered here. So that's an enormous number that you're kind of competing for when you talk about fundraising, trying to raise awareness and to raise funds. So one of the things, and the Peter Bullough Foundation itself is driven partially by an endowment left to us by the late Dr. Bullough, so we're incredibly fortunate. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have that kind of capability and that we're running on, and the houses that we left behind where our programs are based. Like already we're way more fortunate than so many different nonprofits. But that's really allowed us to get up and running, but we still run on and need donations and grants to keep us functioning. So a lot of what we do is just raising awareness, but the other thing that we do to kind of do that is partner with other local organizations. So one of the things that I've loved about the nonprofit community in Winchester is that most people, it's not, somebody elbowing somebody else out of the way for funding. A lot of it is coming together to partner with other organizations on events that benefit both of you and benefit both of your communities. So some of our wonderful partners have been Sean at 1455 Literary Arts. It's been ARE, AIDS Response Effort, and their LGBTQ Center. It's been Evans Home for Children, helping out the kids there, and working with their staff. So we've been big proponents of kind of sharing the spotlight and collaborating in those ways. But obviously one of our biggest partners, if we're collaborating on anything, we're doing it with artists.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that and also like what happens when one goes to the PBF. Like, what does one experience? What does one go there for? And what's the process of applying? Like, talk us through your own experience, maybe like how you kind of talked about how you became aware of it, but like then what happens? Like, I want to go there and do that. That was fun.
So in general, as a freelance artist, you kind of have to be connected to, the media. Basically, you get a lot of information through social media and also through your personal connections. So, I have a lot of friends and colleagues who are already doing art professionally, and they have been applying to many different residencies all around the world. So, when we talk shop, we just naturally comes out, and PBF has came out from a bunch of people. Actually, I used to live in Washington, D.C., and I was part of this speculative fictional writers workshop. It was just a meetup group, basically. But, with a bunch of writers getting together and writing fictions and, giving each other critique and stuff like that. And when I moved here, one of them told me about PBF. And I was like, what? There is an artist residency in Winchester? I had no idea. Because Winchester, when you first come in here, it looks very picturesque. It looks like a, small Virginia town.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't really necessarily look like a town that would have an artist residency. It's not like New York or Chicago or anything like that. So I was very pleasantly surprised, and the next thing I know, one of my best friends from New York was coming here for a residency. So it just like really brought me up to speed of like, wow, this is really a thing here. And that's one of the things that actually kind of drew me to Winchester, because I lived in New York and Washington, D.C. most of my adult life. And during the pandemic, my partner and I were looking for a place to go that's not a city, so I can have some space to work at home. And Winchester really popped up because of the artist residency like PBF, and also the museum of Shenandoah Valley, and also Shenandoah University. There's some culture here. There's things for me to do and go see and meet people. So it gave me like a hope that even though Winchester is 2-hour drive from DC or any other big cities, like I felt like it's a place that I can really put my root down and have a very successful and fulfilling life. So I think that's one of the beauty of having an artist organization like PBF in a town like this, because it brings other people from different parts of the world into this town. And when they come here, they don't just come here and just stay in their little studio and work. Some people can do that, but most people would actually go out there and meet people. A lot of my friends who have came here as an artist resident, they'll go to like hopscotch or go to the coffee shops, and they will make connections with local people, and organically they will have some kind of work connection. So one of my friends actually who came here, I guess 2 years ago, Laura
And
Tom, she's a cartoonist.
Yeah, 2024.
Yeah. So she was just wandering around, and somehow she met somebody at the Valley Health, and she like collaborated them to make a D&D characters for their like rehab group or something. So there's opportunities and meaningful connections that you can make anywhere in the world, but if it's not for an organization like PBF, there would never be made.
Thank you for that, both of you. And Robin, you just really, I'm still going to want to go deeper, but you just articulated so perfectly what we mean when we talk about community and why community is important. And community with an uppercase C or a lowercase c, because it's communities of writers, communities of artists, communities of nonprofit, communities of arts supporters, communities of audiences, etc. But before I get too deep into that, I kind of want to back up a little bit. And I think also something that most people are probably aware of, but some real talk. The other reality that can't be avoided or ignored with these discussions is any life in the arts is tenuous, it's challenging, and money is very difficult to procure. It's always been that way. There's very few artists in world history who were not born into money, that had an easy path. To me, that always means that on one hand separates the pretenders. You know, if you're going to do it, you need to be in it for life. But also, at a certain point, I've found, even with writers, which is typically a very solitary, you have to get the work done. I think any art requires that solitude and that discipline. But at a certain point, especially in the 21st century, we recognize that if we're not part of other communities, it's that much harder to get our work out there. It's that much harder to be part of something that's going to make you aware of the connections you both just spoke about. Like knowing people that have done things and being in touch with them, you're going to hear about these opportunities. You're going to be able to meet people. So it's part and parcel to how difficult it is for any career in the arts. And I say that as a writer who's made very little money through his career. So I say that not to discourage anyone, but rather, again, real talk. Like, it is challenging. Therefore, the people that want to succeed figure out ways around those obstacles. And money is a big obstacle, but there are a lot of pathways towards success in art that don't involve writing or producing something, making a lot of money, and then you've arrived. So maybe we can talk a little bit about specifically what happens. So once the artists arrive, what I love about what PBF does and provides is it's this wonderful balance between time and space for an individual to get work done in a focused environment, absolutely critical. But it also provides that magic seed of community and the opportunity not only to meet other people that are in residence, but the backdrop of Winchester, which, again, you articulated already very wonderfully, and I share that perception completely, coming down here for the first time, falling in love with it, and realizing this is a very robust, creative, energetic, passionate town.
So the way that our program works is that artists apply online via a portal to come be part of our community. We jury those applications using a mixture of board members, former artists in residence, and community members, and then our staff as well, to really pick candidates that fit what we're looking for in terms of artists in residence. So some of the people who we have a high regard for the work that they're putting out, but not only that, but they're a personality fit for our program, that they want to engage with the local community. That's something that we care a lot about, that they want to teach a workshop, they want to be involved, they want to connect with people here in Winchester. So once residents are selected, we go through kind of a lengthy interview process that we actually just completed, and just let our 9 artists for this fall know just last week. And launched our ones for spring 2026 today.
Wow.
So, which is great. We're really excited about it. But once we start to get them involved and onboarded, what we do is we send out a series of surveys. So one survey is all around kind of preferences that they have, how big their studio space needs to be, what kind of type of, are they a night owl, are they, really somebody who's awake more during the day, and then we kind of match them with the spaces that we have in our residency, both for their studio and for their living space. And then what we get into is, okay, while you're here, we want you to engage with the community in some way. So as asking them questions like, what do you want to teach? And for some artists, that's really easy. There's something that they're passionate about, or that they've taught before, or that they're really looking forward to teaching to the community. And so we really lean into that. And typically whatever somebody's really passionate about or really excited about, that's what they should be teaching. So we work with them to connect with local different folks in the community, or to host just a public workshop at the Peter Bullough Foundation, and put that together. And sometimes, people don't really want to do a workshop, they just kind of want to talk about their craft. So if that's the case, we connect them with local professors, either at Shenandoah or at Laurel Ridge, so those artists can come and talk about their practice in that way. But whatever it is, and sometimes we even have folks that are, they work in the community, and they'll say, hey, I want to go talk to people that work at an organization that's doing this thing. And we're like, great, we'll connect you with their staff members, and we'll get you going there. So we're really flexible with how our artists can get involved. We try to, cater to their strengths and what they want to do. But it is something that we insist that they be part of while they're here in Winchester. We feel like it's a really important part of connecting, and we feel like it's really important to give back to the community that we're in.
Awesome.
Oh, and we give them a $600 stipend.
which is very nice.
Let's talk about that stipend and how the environment is a good incubator for both creativity and potential collaboration and community. You've already articulated, but give us a little more, like, not only what you've experienced, but obviously, both from your experience here, but your previous experiences. You obviously also are a big believer in community and the empowerment of artists getting together and supporting each other. I just think that's something that people all know about intuitively, but I don't think it gets enough attention, how important, how critical that aspect is.
Right, so when you're in school, you kind of take it for granted that there are people around you who are doing the same thing that you want to do, and you have a lot to talk about together, and create something together. But once you leave, educational environment, that becomes like fewer and fewer. So for me, after I graduated from college, I think the only way I could meet people who are in my field. I mean, first I was working in fashion, so I had a corporate job, so I would go to the office and I'll make friends who are also illustrators and fashion designers. But my passion was always in cartooning, and cartoonists are all like basically working from home, or they meet at the conventions and things like that. But otherwise, it's not really easy to find them. So the most prominent way that I made new connections in my adult professional career was by going to artist residencies. So 90% of the people that I met who are like my really good friends and mentor, they were all from past artist residencies. And it's really incredible that PBF actually offers stipend, because most artist residency actually don't offer them anything. Actually, you have to pay to go. So it depends on which residencies you're applying to. But a lot of them do make you pay A, to apply, and B, when you get accepted, you have to at least pay for like your room and boarding. So it's not always affordable for a lot of people. Like $600 is not gonna cover, their work that they have to give up by coming here, but at least it can cover some of the airfare and food and things like that, which is very, very helpful. And what was the other question?
Yeah, I think you covered it. Like the community when you're there. I mean, you're talking about through your own past. Something that you brought up that I'm grateful that you brought up. So I had experience. The nonprofit that I found is called 1455 Literary Arts, but that grew out of an experience I had helping run a center at Martha's Vineyard. It was a dedicated writing retreat, and when I went there, the first thing I thought once I was around all these other people was, it's been since college that I had the opportunity for like more than an afternoon or an event like this to be around other people that take what I do as seriously as I do. And it's very difficult to articulate how crucial and refreshing and inspiring that can be.
Did you meet Hannah there at Martha's Vineyard?
Hannah
Bay.
She's the mutual friend that we have that introduced it.
Because she was there last year.
Oh, well, she might have been at a different, because no
See, that's the thing. It's artist community is so small.
It's so small.
So if you
6
are,
degrees
poking around
Yeah.
for a few years, you will basically have like 1 degree separation from everyone.
For sure. And that brings up another thing that I hear myself repeat a lot, but I think it's always worth mentioning, that from someone that did try to carve out an existence pre-internet, the 21st century and technology, in my opinion, are all positive things, because they've, in addition to democratizing content, giving people more opportunities to get their work out there than, say, the analog world, where to write a book you had to send it somewhere and get it published, or a label had to make your album. Like, there's a lot more opportunities and pathways. But one of the things I've seen over the years, and it's a little bit ironic, but it sort of makes sense, when you're able to connect digitally, again, full stop, 100% in favor of all the opportunities and diversity that provides, but people are more alone than ever, because you mistake digital interaction or the ease of email or the ease of the Zoom for what we're experiencing now. And I think that's another aspect of what Peter Bullough does that's so important. And there's not a lot of places like that provide the time and space and support. Talk a little bit about the in-person versus all of us, I think, do most of our work on a computer. It's inevitable, it's unavoidable, but what happens when people are together in real time at the same place at the same time?
So artist residency is different from, let's say, going to like comics conventions. Because comics convention, you go there to basically sell your book. So, you're just like talking to either your potential readers or an editor who you want to send your work to. So it's all kind of, it's fun and it's very useful, but at the same time, it's slightly impersonal and it can kind of feel a little overwhelming or shallow or, it's just not a really full connection. But when you're in a residency together, usually you live together. So you're with your residents like 24 hours a day. And, well, if you don't get along with that person, that's a problem. But if you do, then you become like BFF right away. So, like the first residency I've ever been to was Atlantic Center for the Arts in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. And I was like in my late 20s, so I was pretty young too. But basically, like the cohort I had, it was cartooning. So they had a cartooning residency, which is very rare actually. Most artist residencies are like interdisciplinary, or you don't have like a cohort that you are like making things together. So that was really special that they had a cartooning residency. So I made so many friends, and that 7 people that I was cohort with, they're still my best friend. And this was 2014, so 10 years ago. So, and we help each other constantly, we help each other in not just like getting, an editor to look at their stuff or agents to, swap agents and, just moral support too. That's, I think it's even more important because, like you said, being a freelance artist is really hard, and sometimes you really don't know if this is gonna work out or if you're on the right path. And I've been doing this for almost 20 years, but, there are some times I think, at least once or twice every project, I feel like I can't do this. So, it's really important to have somebody that you really trust and, you know that they know what they're doing and they can really, help you get through this.
Yeah, thanks guys. So getting back to the challenges, the same thing that I just mentioned, which is, again, I think it's a beautiful thing that all of us have access to so much free content, not to mention what you can pay for or have a subscription to, but there's just so much stuff out there that's a great problem to have, but it's also harder to stand out, both as an artist and I think as an organization. I welcome each of you to talk, but Katie, I'd love you to talk a little bit about what are some of the challenges in terms of just being part of the conversation, part of the community, and maybe some things you've done using your own creativity to kind of think outside the box. Because I think we all have to, as creatives, nonprofit, anything involving the arts, none of us, or very few of us, are able to get away with just wearing one hat. Like, we've all got to be pretty multi-talented and nimble.
So things that we've done kind of that are out of the box a little bit as a residency, I think we've tried to, in communications, I think we've tried to maintain a sense of humor, or add like a level of personality. And I really like to credit my colleague, Jeffrey Albright. If you see any of our social media posts that include like a time and a date and they're very precise, that's me. But any that include like the word sparkle, that's Jeffrey. And he has a very, I think, specific kind of sense of humor and sense of writing that I think I've really leaned into ever since he started writing some of our captions for our social media. We've just kind of gone with that because I think it shows a lot of the personality of the organization. So I think that's made a huge difference. And while other things that we've done to just try to stand out that seem very basic, I'm not going to lie to you. We have regular social media posts. We try and trick the algorithm into doing things for us. but one of the things that we haven't leaned into as much is AI with writing our newsletters. So we send out about one newsletter a month. We can include descriptions of any events that we have coming up, any news that we have, any kind of blog posts that we have going out that contain information about what we have going on. And I've gotten this feedback really surprised me. I've had people come up to me or talk to me in public and say, hey, I really like reading your newsletter. I can tell it's still written by a human. And so they, I guess it skips the promotions inbox in Google and goes and stays in the regular inbox. And so for us, that's been a way that we've stood out. I feel like it's, to get back to your point about like so much people are doing things alone these days, and having some kind of human connection that feels tangible and real, I think is really important. So I think doing that, and then just kind of like, again, kind of being a part of the community, inviting the community in different ways, whether that's for workshops or partnerships with other organizations, or through an open studio. So we throw about kind of almost monthly open studios with our artists and residents if they're interested in them, and it's an opportunity for the public to come in and just walk through our artist studios and see what they've been working on over the course of the last month. It's really casual, it's really informal. I encourage you all to attend if you see one on our website. It's really laid back. We brought snacks. It's great, but we also host one really big open studio in August every year, and that is with our summer artists and residents, which is what Robin was. And every summer, that local residency program is we invite local artists who are living in Winchester or in the surrounding area to come and apply and to work in our studios for a month without living there, or for 2 months without living there. And at the end of that, we throw this really big open studio party, and while it costs us a bunch of money, it's a really nice event, and it's kind of a good way of establishing continued goodwill with the community. And just having that kind of like higher event that people feel, oh man, this is really something cool, this is really something different, has kind of given us some great publicity over the course of the last couple of years.
Yeah. So one of the things that you and the organization have done so well is engaging with the public, because again, it's also the cliche of build it and they will come. That's never been true, and I think it's less true than ever. Talk a little bit more, if you would, about what kind of feedback are you getting from the public, and what are they telling you, and how does that play into programming or things you're doing and some of these? I mean, because you really are, you're inviting the community in and giving them things to chew on. It's not just, we're doing events, come support us. And I think that's brilliant. I think it's effective, but I'm imagining that this has also evolved as you felt out. What does the public have an appetite for? What kind of feedback are we getting?
Absolutely. So I think what we have found, we've done a number of surveys, both with we always do a survey with our residents when they leave. We do them before they come. We also do them when they leave to learn how we can continue to improve. We also try and do them anytime we host an event. We try to send out a survey afterwards to gather public opinion, learn what people liked and what they didn't like. And then when we were also creating kind of strategy for the next couple of years and a strategic plan of what we were going to do as an organization, we reached out to the community again and said, hey, if you've been to one of our events in the last several years, what did you think? How did you hear about us? What would you like us to do more of? So I think soliciting that public feedback is really, really important. Anytime you can send a survey, super important. You should definitely do it. And what we heard from them is that they want more events. They want to have more opportunities to come to different workshops. They really like that we are offering really different things with our workshops. We're not just doing, watercolor painting, although that's, a really fun thing to learn and it's very valid. But we're offering like how to make a tunnel book. We're offering how to bind books, or how to, make paper weaving. Some of these really different things that you're probably not going to see in other local organizations that have like a different set of artists that they're working with. From us, you're going to see these kind of weird niche things that our artists are working in major metropolitan areas that you wouldn't normally see in Winchester. So what we've really done is try to lean into what the public is requesting of us. The other thing that we've done recently is to apply for grants that allow us to actually pay our artists more for hosting more workshops. And our goal with that has been, the way that we apply for it, we'll see if we get it, but our goal with that has been to allow our artists both to host a public workshop with the Peter Bullough Foundation, where they're, to the general public coming and being a part of it. And then what we hope is a second workshop working with a specific audience, be those at-risk youth that are at Evans Home for Children, or be that very specific populations within other organizations. So doing that, we're able to both pay the artists more, but we're able to reach a wider audience, both the general public, but also people who are in need of, an arts workshop.
Yeah.
Or a different perspective.
Thank you for that. Robin, so you've talked about your experience both as an independent freelancing artist, your experience at the foundation, but you have also gotten involved. You're on the board. You're involved in supporting it. Talk a little bit about what that means to you, why you got involved, and why it's important for artists and non-artists, non-creatives, to be directly involved and kind of walking the walk.
Yeah, so it's been very interesting to be in the behind the table kind of, like see how the sausage is getting made. Because I've always been the artist who applies these things. I've never been the person to select it or actually be one of those people who have control over like how things are run, which is really cool. I feel powerful. So I mean, I think it's really. It feels great to me. It feels very fulfilling for me to be part of the organization like PBF, especially now that I'm, Winchester resident. Like I'm not just art lover. I live here, and I would like to see PBF grow and be even more outreaching and more successful than it already is. And I think there is. I don't want to sound corny, but I feel like people need art. Like, being smart and being, productive or whatever, the modern society pushes us to be is all great. But if we don't have something that we can kind of do on our own, that fulfills our own need to make something new and just explore these areas that we know it's there like subconsciously, but just never gave ourselves a chance to explore, I think is really important. So I think a lot of people who come to PBF events are either already artists or people who are already interested in art, but I love seeing like young kids coming there for the first time with their parents or their friends and seeing actual working artists like making art. That's different from just watching, looking at art in a gallery. You can actually get to talk to people who made this art and doing it for, they're professionally. So that's just something very unique, especially for young people. I mean, you guys are young, so please come and talk to us. And I think what's really unique about PBF is that PBF is a really small residency. So usually most artist residencies are really big, so there's like, a dozen to even 20, 30 residents at the same time. And they could be kind of little insular or even more closed up in some ways. But PBF is really open. Whenever you come to our events, you will notice that it's because of our space. It's very tiny. It's actual houses. It's two houses next to each other. So one of the house is the residents' living house, and the other one is the office and the studio space. So you can basically see and walk to our studio space in one house, and it's just a lot more intimate, and it's a lot easier for you to get to know the artists when you come to these events. So. I've come there as just a spectator and made really good friends with, the resident that I didn't share the residency with. So, I think that there are people who know this things, but just don't think it's their job or it's in their power to help, but it is not true. Like, even if you can't donate, that's totally fine. Even just coming and, experiencing this wonderful things on your own and spreading the word and bringing other people come to the next event, those things are all very helpful. So And I think it's gonna make you a better person and a happier person.
Right on, here. So I talked about the C word. I'll also briefly talk about the P word, which we don't talk about. Well, we don't get into politics. I won't try to be cute. But I'll just say that we are always living and responding to the times we live in. So without getting political, I will simply make the observation that it's usually during times when the arts are threatened or are not funded, or funding on a universal scale, not just in the arts communities, but funding, things like government support, community support. They tend to bring into sharp focus something that's typically taken for granted. And I think art is taken for granted in some ways good, because people count on it and they expect it to be there. But when times are tough, it's a good reminder. I always hope it's not unnecessary, but it always seems to be necessary to remind people that art can't happen without support, without oxygen to make it work. So for me, speaking for the work I do and trying to celebrate story, I find that the more challenging times are, the more important it is to talk about this stuff, to articulate what you both have eloquently done, which is there's a lot of ways to get involved. Having the opportunity to write a check or buy a book, great. But helping spread awareness, being an active part of that community is critical. Any thoughts in terms of in 2025 how this mission feels even more important, or what you're looking forward to as we rise above any challenges that are on the horizon and come out stronger?
Oh man.
No pressure.
It's an interesting time to be an arts organization, and I'll also speak to kind of a little bit about our history. So, and I think it's relevant in a couple different ways. So, I want to go back a little bit and talk about Dr. Bullough and why it is that he was so interested in supporting emerging artists. There was an artist named Sakiko Aide, who was a Japanese artist, came to the US in the 60s, made her way from Chicago to New York, and started to get involved in the art scene there. And she started to do pretty well, but she was really struggling, clearly, I think, struggling mentally. And Dr. Bullough, somewhere along the way, either heard about her or purchased some. We know that he purchased 2 very large paintings from her. And unfortunately, she committed suicide. She just really, was having a very hard time. And her story, and she felt like she wasn't making it as an artist. And her story really inspired Dr. Bullough to get involved with emerging artists, and to purchase work and support artists who are working, who are alive. And he, throughout his career, befriended artists, purchased work from them, purchased work from their students, because so many artists teach, and are professors. And he just really, lived that mission out, and then donated his fortune to emerging artists, being part of that. So Dr. Bullough also, gave one of his career to develop the field of orthopedic pathology. And for all, he had many patients. He worked to define a number of different diseases that really made an incredible impact on many people's lives. So for all this work that he did, making an impact on others' lives, Peter was a closeted gay man. He was out with many of his friends, but he was not out professionally. And I think that that's important to share, because that was also something that he thought about when he founded the residency program. So our residency, not only does it support emerging artists, but we also have a focus on those who are part of the LGBTQ community, and those whose work kind of uplifts those voices in that community. It doesn't mean that we exclusively support artists that identify in that way, but it does mean that we are a safe space for artists in that community. So what I've been told in our most recent round of interviews by those artists is that that's important.
Sure.
To keep providing a space for that. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what do artists do in addition to creating is bearing witness, is supporting, lifting each other up. This is a human, we're getting beyond art and into the human impulse for community, for creativity, for story, to share. Because story doesn't happen unless there is that human impulse to share one's experience, be vulnerable, cultivate empathy. And again, I'll say it again, I'll repeat myself, the reason that I'm so supportive of the work you and the organization do is just what you just said. It is his own reward to provide time and space for creatives, but to take it to a whole other level with that kind of public mission and that kind of unabashed advocacy is what the world needs more of. So I certainly, I continue to endorse and celebrate, but thank you also for getting up every day and doing the hard work to make a difference for a lot of people.
And I can add to that. I think, there's a lot of books getting banned these days, and I think, that's really wrong in many levels. But I want to redefine books. What it means to me is that books didn't change me. It just made me feel less alone. I am the way I am. I was born this way, whatever it is, and books didn't make me this way. When I found a book that really spoke to me, it made me feel seen. So I think that's the power of art. It brings people together. It makes them feel less alone. So when there are so many things that are trying to push down marginalized people and people who are already feeling powerless and hopeless, I think it's the time where art is the most important because it connects people.
So beautifully stated. Thank you both. Questions, comments? We've got two successful creatives here whose brains you can freely pick. Golden opportunity to ask a burning question about what you're going to do, what are you worried about as you look toward a career path. Any observations or thoughts? Yeah.
Not so much a question, but I just want to say thank you for all of the work you're doing. I've been to a couple of events with PBF.
You look familiar.
And I really just love how much you focus on the process, not in place of the product, but I love that emphasis. And I think, thinking and connecting it to story, a lot of times with the product, you get almost one comprehensive story. And what I love about focusing on the process, especially with the residency model, is you have so many stories happening simultaneously, and they're really complex and they're always intersecting. And I see a lot of beauty in that, so thank you.
Oh, thank you, that's very kind of you. We'll have to talk about specifically what workshops you went to, because each of them is really unique. And I'll say too, if you choose to attend any of our workshops, this is not a paint by number. This is very much a choose your own adventure. Nobody's will look the same. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns? Yes.
I come from a town that's pretty similar in size to Winchester, but all the way in Texas. I have never heard of PBF before this, and I was just curious, how do y'all reach out to community members through workshops, stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of it is honestly reliant on word of mouth. So we send out, when we have upcoming events, we send out a newsletter, we send out social media posts, and like I said, we'll frequently partner with another organization so that they're also sharing whatever that event is. And sometimes too, we're going to share it with whoever is a resident at the time. They end up sharing it with their network as well if they're on social media. So all these different things, there are still parts of the community that are untapped or that it's not going to reach. So that is something that we're always striving to expand, that we're always working toward. But we are a small organization. We have 2 staff people that are full-time, and that's it. So there's a limit to, who we can reach and what we can do. But we also come to events like this. And we have wonderful, other people that we work with, like Sean. We have wonderful community sponsors and organizations that we work with, so we try to get the word out in as many ways as we can.
Awesome. Anything else? Yes.
I'm kind of new to all of this. What's a workshop? What do you mean by that?
Oh man, do you want to answer that?
What don't we mean by that?
So I'm going to give one of my favorite examples. So last fall, we had an artist named Jing Hong Chen who came and taught us how to make tunnel books. What is a tunnel book? A tunnel book is kind of a series of pieces of paper basically cut in a specific way so the image kind of builds on itself and kind of creates a narrative and a story. So Jing Hong was just a really awesome teacher. She's a graduate of Rhode Island School of Design, and I just feel like they do an incredible job. Robin is also a graduate. They just do an incredible job of kind of teaching their students, and so Jing Hong really had this workshop broken down and dissected into parts of what you needed to do to be able to build kind of a 3-layer tunnel book. And so what a workshop does, or a good workshop I think does, is teach you how to do something different, how to do something new that you haven't learned before, you haven't experimented with. And in this day and age too, I think a good workshop kind of takes you out of your brain a little bit. I think so much of our days these days are spent kind of in our own heads and kind of, worrying about something or just trying to get something done. And I think a good workshop introduces you to the community around you, allows you to kind of get out of your brain and try something different, teach you a different skill, but also makes you feel a little bit like you're part of a community while you're there. So that for me is a workshop. And at the end, you get to take home something. And sometimes we even have snacks. So it's great.
And they also have a lot of writing workshops. So I've been to a few. I've been to a poetry. With Amanda. So so there's a really beautiful library in PDF that's the perfect cube. It's 13 foot by 13 foot by 13 foot, and it's like really magical in there. And he was such an amazing collector of beautiful art books and all kinds of books actually. So we went in and just grabbed whatever spine that attracted us, and then we found a page that we can take some either image or a piece of writing from, and then we build on top of that. So it was just it kind of makes you free up the area of your brain that you never thought existed. So it's really cool. You should definitely come.
For sure. Well, we're coming up on the hour, so any last minute? Yeah.
Do you all have a gallery somewhere?
No.
Oh.
So that's a great question though. Yes and no actually. So Dr. Bullough left behind a collection. So his collection, you're going to see maybe a few artists whose name you might recognize or pieces that might be considered famous. But a lot of his work is from students. It's from kids in their graduating shows. It's from artist friends that he collected from who may or may not have made it as successful artists. And so the way that his house is set up is actually it's going to feel more like a house museum than necessarily like a gallery. But the way that it is set up is basically as he left it. So his home kind of feels like a little bit of a museum. But we have, the artists that we have worked with have sometimes asked, could we have a gallery space, could we have a show? And beyond doing an open studio, a gallery is a whole other, level of affairs that we have not had the time to dedicate to. But we have so many artists that have done so much interesting, really, really different work that I'd love to, in 5 to 10 years, have a retrospective of those artists and be able to show some different things.
So cool. Yes, sir.
Sean, you first came to town and we got to know each other.
Yeah.
You were working to create a brick and mortar writing center, and you subsequently moved to much more of an online presence.
Yeah.
But do you see the Peter Bullough Foundation as a fulfillment in some way of that original vision that you were part of?
It's a great question. So when I first came to Winchester, I took the experience I had at Martha's Vineyard and wanted to open up a year-round retreat, primarily for writers, but I think even then we acknowledged anyone that's creative can and should come to this. So I can't take a scintilla of credit for what Katie and her team and the good doctor did to leave behind. I see it more as a happy coincidence. If for no other reason, in addition to the mutual mission, the previous property that I was going to build on is right next door. So Your question I can answer in 3 ways. One, wholly independent. I can't take any credit in any way other than being a fan. I do think what the foundation does is completely in line with what I envisioned and the type of things that these organizations that exist around the country do, but a lot of the places around the country tend to be exclusive, expensive, competitive. What PBF is and what I did envision and still envision down the road is something that is very inclusive, welcomes a variety of different disciplines, different skill levels, and has an emphasis on the community building, both in terms of the artists that come, but engaging in a real way with the local community. And then, that brings it full circle. I think one of the challenges, aside from COVID, that I had was funding is a real issue. I didn't assume or presume that money was going to be forthcoming easily, but it's a significant challenge to try to run a nonprofit, unless you already have money or space, or unless you've got a business plan with backers that aren't in the arts world that have access to funds. So all these things are very intimately connected, but I look at PBF as both a kind of a pinnacle of what this can be, but a constant force of inspiration for me as someone that runs a nonprofit and someone that aspires to do what Katie and Robin do at the highest levels.
Also, Sean, to give you credit, you were our first community partner that we worked with.
I don't know if I realize that, but how cool that is.
2021.
And, we're talking about story. I'll go right into the other C word, corny. This is a full circle. Like, we got to know each other, from mutual interests and the proximity, but that is the essence of collaboration. It never hurts if you genuinely admire the people, really like them. That is absolutely significant. But when you find people that you respect, it's just incumbent on you to stick to them like a magnet and figure out ways to promote. And I think at a certain point we all recognize whenever there's a strategic way to lift 2 missions or 3 missions, that's great. But I can speak very sincerely and say there's something very gratifying about doing the work for its own, literally for its own purpose of you see someone doing amazing things, and why wouldn't you use every platform you have to promote and support that? That's how I feel about it.
Agreed.
Well, any other, did I miss anything? You guys covered everything I could have reasonably hoped for, so I'm profoundly grateful to you both. Thank you all for coming out. We'll be here to linger if there's any more personal questions, but I thank everyone for coming out and supporting this. Please join me in thanking Katie and Robin. And before I let you go, how can people find you online? I'll put this on my write-up, but how can people find out how to find you and check you out?
So on Instagram and I think on Facebook, we are Peter Bullough, Bullough spelled Bullough Foundation. So you can find us on there. We have a website, which is peterbulloughfoundation.org.
And sign up for their newsletter.
Sign up for our
Yeah, that's how I get all the information about what the workshop, what kind of workshop they have.
It's in our footer.
You can find me on Instagram, even though I don't really go on Instagram anymore. It's Robin Ha Art, ROBINHA Art. And I have a website. I should know the website. But if you go to Instagram, there is my website link there. So you could find me that way. I'm terrible. Oh my goodness.
That's another reason we need to do this work, because artists are typically terrible at promoting themselves. So it does take a village. Thank you all very much. Please help me thank Robin and Katie for being here today.